Okay, it is recording.
So
So what did you want to chat about?
So basically, I'm just looking for ways to increase my comprehension, understanding of French and Chinese on the schedule that I'm currently on right now. I'm trying to get this business off the ground, takes up the majority of my time, and it's either that or family. And I'm trying to figure out how I can get 30 minutes in per day just for comprehension, and then 30 minutes a day for writing characters. Talking about Chinese, I need to make sure I'm using this book every day.
Tell you one more time. So you're working on Chinese, and what's the other one?
French.
Chinese and French, and you're trying to get a half hour a day for each language?
Yes. And that includes weekends and things like that as well.
Sure.
Like holidays and everything.
Okay, Chinese and French. Okay, well, let's take a step back. So let's start with Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been studying it? How strong, how comfortable or how strong do you feel? Like, where are you at for Mandarin?
So on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of my level, probably a 1.5.
Okay, so quite beginner.
Yeah, definitely. And I know a lot of phrases and stuff because I made the mistake of buying a phrase book first this time.
Right.
And I don't really hear the tones in conversation, and I try to hear like CCTV and stuff. I think it was just a waste of my time, frankly, because I still don't understand it very well. So I'm also in the process of vetting resources for Chinese language.
Okay. And where are you trying to go with Mandarin in the long term? Are you trying to get to like a near native level fluency, just conversational? Do you just want to read? Like, where are you trying to go with it? In like, what's your end goal, your end point?
Near native. I want all 4 tools. I want to be able to hear it, speak it, read it, and write it.
Okay, cool. And how about French? How long have you been doing that? Where are you at, give or take, in terms of your fluency?
I'd say about, I think I'm B2.
Okay, so you're quite strong in French then.
Yeah, definitely. We spoke one time before.
I remember that.
Yeah. And then you said I was basically fluent. So that I took that to me, okay, I'm doing pretty well then.
Yeah. When was that? That was a while back.
Yeah, man. I think it was like 2 years ago or something like that.
Was I in China when we talked by any chance?
Yes, you were.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. That's what I remember. I remember being in China. That would have been 2016.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Man, I've been following you a long time, man.
That's crazy. Oh, cool. I do remember I don't remember why we spoke in French, but I do remember we chatted in French.
Yeah, I just wanted some direction in terms of my level and things like that. I do better when I have people telling me, yeah, Malcolm, you've done good, or no, Malcolm, you didn't hit the mark this time. So that was what I was looking for that day, and then you were able to provide it. Unfortunately, I feel like my level has leveled off a bit just because with starting the company and the new interest in Chinese, learning languages to me is like, oh, look at that one. I'm going to drop everything and learn that. So I'm trying to figure out ways to stay grounded in what I'm currently doing, build my level in French back up, hopefully get to C1, take a placement exam so that it's certified, and launch my business with that under my belt.
For sure. What languages? Cool. And that's also, you want to get to it, like you want it to be something that's at a near native level of fluency, something very, very strong. Is that right?
Yes, indeed.
Cool. Okay. Where did you get 30 minutes a day from? Where did that number come from?
That's just internally what I feel like it would take for me over the course of a period of time, i.e. every day. Those segments will be enough in terms of breadth to propel me to like not just staying at the surface level. I feel like 5 minutes a day is too short. I feel like I won't really get too much into it. And then if I do 30 minutes, I can block it off into, okay, I can practice listening for 10 minutes. I can practice reading for 10 minutes, and then I can practice writing for 10 minutes. You know, it's just enough time for me to like be effective.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And so what did you know, that seems to make sense to me. I mean, seems logical enough and makes sense. where did you want my input on, like how to fit that in? How, like you mentioned, I think 3 or 4 times that you're putting a lot of time into your business. Like what did you want my input on?
So I primarily was looking for like expertise in terms of what's the most effective in terms of time. How much should you be putting in per week? And if you could recommend any resources for Mandarin and French, that would be great as well.
Okay. So basically, how do you use that hour of your time is basically what you're trying to figure out.
Absolutely,
Like,
yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. And then resources for Mandarin.
Yes.
Okay. Let's start at resources for Mandarin, and then we'll go to the 30 minutes a day. We'll do that second. So, do you mind if I speak with you in Mandarin a little bit, or if I start to ask you a couple of things to figure out how beginner you are? Is that okay?
Okay, it'll be embarrassing, but okay.
Is that okay? If not, or are you really, you're basically pure beginner?
I might list 我的朋友们都叫我 Malcolm. 我只会说一点中文.
Okay. How?
That's about the extent of my knowledge and then telling and things like that.
And you've learned it how so far? How have you learned that?
There is a little Mandarin phrase book that I use, and I just look at it before bed every night and just try to say it 150 times or something like that, and then that's what it got me.
Okay. So for Mandarin, I think the first thing we have to do is we have to figure out, you either need to find a program that you're following, or you've got to find a teacher that can lay out a program for you, or you make a kind of program for yourself where you're like, okay, first I want to learn this, then I want to learn this, then I want to learn this, then I want to I think that would be good because it'll bring focus to your half an hour. I think that'll also help you figure out where to focus at half an hour. So, yeah, I think that's the number one thing we've got to figure out.
Okay, so focus for a half an hour. So I'm thinking, is there a textbook or something that you would recommend?
Yep.
Because
I've personally used what is it called? Let me quickly. Actually, if you hang on 3 seconds, my backpack is right on the corner. I'll look at the name at the one. Oh, hold up, or is it on the shelf? Oh, I see it there. One sec. So this is like one that I've probably used the most frequently. I'll show you on the screen here. This is like level 1, part 1, integrated Chinese.
oh, cool.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. I've enjoyed it. It's been good. Sometimes a little bit formal, or they use wordings that are maybe not like the most colloquial per se, but I think that often goes for many textbooks. So it's not, I don't think it really makes it a bad book per se. But yeah, I've used it a lot. I'm now on the Mandarin class I take right now is on level, I think it's level 2, part 2, I believe. And we're basically done that, if I'm not mistaken. So it's level 1, part 1, the 4th book, I believe. Yeah, is what I'm using. Yeah, it's quite, I've liked it.
So wait, how long have you been learning Mandarin anyway?
5 years or so, give or take.
Good.
Yeah, and so I've used different books, I've used different resources, I've done stuff that's very non-structured, this is the one probably consistent thing that I've worked through on a level basis that I've enjoyed. So.
Wait, so did you understand what I was saying?
You said the first part I didn't. I wasn't ready for you to jump into Mandarin, so I wasn't listening, but then you said, my name is Malcolm, I can speak a little bit of Mandarin.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so people are understanding me when I talk. That's important. So that was going to tell me if you're not understanding that I need to go back and study tones and things like that.
I do think you can use some work on it because I think I understood you because I'm used to being around Mandarin learners. I don't know if I'm not sure what the average, Mandarin speaking person, I'm not sure. Some might not have understood that, or they'd have to really strain their ears.
Okay.
So I think some work on tones would be beneficial. I'd say 80% of that 90% you can do by yourself, just by listening to, like finding a YouTube video that explains it, recording them saying it, and then you record yourself and you listen to see if they sound the same. You can do, and you practice that. That's probably 80% you can do by yourself. There's a 20% gap you'll need help with from someone else, a native or advanced speaker who has excellent pronunciation, just so you could run it by them to be like, hey, am I saying this right? I've just made a list of things and I want to make sure I'm saying these right. And they'll tell you yes or no.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I practice just to save the most, I think, financially and also just time-wise. You can do a lot by yourself, but then eventually at some point you will want to ask someone to make sure you're really saying it right.
Definitely, especially before I put in a lot of work, and realize you're saying it completely wrong.
Yeah, totally. Another great way, actually, here's a really interesting way to see if your pronunciation is acceptable. It's not a perfect way to, it's not a perfect judge, but if you change your phone, do you have an iPhone or do you have a Google or Android? What do you have?
Well, I have an iPhone.
Okay, so you change your Siri language to Mandarin, and you start saying things in Mandarin. If Siri understands you, well, clearly you were at least kind of right. You know what I mean? Like if you're saying like,
Sure.
well, yeah, Azren, and it like writes complete nonsense, you're like, oh, that's not what I said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you know your pronunciation was bad.
Definitely. Yeah.
But if it catches what you said, it's not a perfect measure because sometimes your pronunciation might not be great, but it's still understood. But you know it's fine-ish, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I've never thought of that.
Yeah, I learned that in Taiwan when I was teaching English to the family I was living with. There's a I think he was 10 years old, 10-year-old boy that I was, there's a son of the family, and I was teaching him English. He spoke no English or very little English. And his pronunciation was really poor initially. And I often ask my phone things. I'll be like, hey, Google, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, he thought it's funny. So he would say, hey, Google, to try and make my phone light up and like, so he can talk to it, but it wouldn't understand him. So he'd like practice saying that over and over till he could say it clearly enough for my phone to pick it up and understand. And then that's how we'd practice pronunciation. I give him the thing, he would say a sentence or a word or something. He would see what Google search thought he was saying. And he's like, oh, that's not what I wanted. And I'll try it again. And he'd sit with my phone. And he just like kept saying it. And he was quite engaged with it.
Yeah, that is engaging learning for sure. Rather than just telling him he's wrong every time, let Siri do it.
So I wonder if that, I like to view things as, I like to break things down in very short-term goals. Like whether it's, I almost think 1 to 2 months, even 2 months, even better than one maybe. Like, hey, I want to spend 1 to 2 months on working on this aspect and trying to figure out in a measurable way where you want to move it. So you might decide, for example, okay, I want to use Siri, and by the time I'm done 2 months, when you give me Pinyin, I can read it in a way where Siri understands me. Because then you can very easily check that off. Like, nice, I clearly moved forward. It's a great way to measure your progress when it's a measurable kind of outcome. And I think that could be a good place for you to start.
Definitely. So after I get the tones a little bit better, I'm probably going to integrate a little bit of YouTube in there too. Sure. And at least make sure that, I'm being understood on that front. So should I go ahead and set goals for the next couple months, or should I just focus on getting this right?
Up to you. Either can work. Whatever. I know how, me personally, it's up to you. I think it could be either way.
What do you do?
For myself, I'm not a great example. For my students, it's probably a better example. For my students, we have very specific goals we're working towards that are quite measurable in 1 to 3 month windows. And we focus most of our, like 80% if we focus 80% of our time on that, whatever that goal is, and then you might have a 20% that's on other things too, but 80% of our time is on making sure we can really hit that goal. And the goal we pick is the thing that we decide and agree upon is the most impactful thing right now for them to work on. And then there's 20%, there's a 20% there that's just to make sure you can still maintain some level of freedom, of letting yourself bounce around a bit, still keeping things interesting, maybe playing some games, taking a break from stuff and maybe just listening to a song. There's still a 20 minutes there there's 20% there for that.
Right.
You specifically said, oh, I get distracted. I see that language, I get excited, which is, I think, super common for people. I think a very easy solution is to make sure you have like a main steak. Make sure you've got your main dish, which is your main language, and that's 80%, 70% of your time. And you flirt with everything else, and you go flirt with other things with 20, 30% of your time. That way you're always consistently moving forward on one thing, but you still have your, what's the word I'm looking for? You still have that itch scratched of like going and bouncing around and seeing other languages and doing that.
Yeah, that one works for me with work. So I definitely
Cool.
will try it with language on it. Yeah, Pareto Sprinter, great stuff.
Yeah, so I think that, so how do you, I mean, that also ties into like, where do you use that 30 minutes a day for Mandarin? Like, I think, just based off that one sentence, I would probably, like when you said to me, I would probably have two focuses. One would be keep learning some basics, whether it's from a textbook or from a YouTube series or from whatever source you want to pick.
Mhm.
Keep learning some basics, follow some kind of program that you think aligns with what matters to you. Doesn't matter what it is. Keep following it. Keep learning, adding to your vocabulary, adding to your grammar knowledge and all of that good stuff. But also secondarily, I think that Siri is probably a good tool for you. And really focus on, when I learn new things, can I pronounce them clearly enough that Siri understands what I said?
Gotcha. Okay. So should I go further with the pronunciation? Should I focus on a certain set of phrases, for this? Like, should I just come up with like a list of 10 phrases and then until I can say these perfectly, I just keep trying to get it more and more perfect every day? Or should I just like come up with more than that? I'm trying to think of whether I should practice the same kick 1,000 times or whether I should just practice 1,000 kicks, if that makes sense.
I would start with the same things, quote unquote, like 10 things 1,000 times. I'd probably start there until you can't, until it gets to a point where one of two things happens. One, you're stuck and you just are not seeing a way to overcome something. Or maybe you pick 10 phrases and suddenly 7 of them are pretty good and you're like pretty good with them. And the 3 you just cannot get. And no matter what you do, it's just, you're stuck.
Yeah.
You might say, okay, well, we got 7 on 10. Those 3 are driving me nuts. I've been working on it for 2 weeks every day. It's not improving. Like, I don't like, and it's like a point where you're at this road, you're at like a block. You might decide, all right, I'm done with those. I'm done with those 10. I'm kind of done with that because those 3 might have to come later. My brain probably needs a break. Also, as you learn other phrases and other things that you're learning, there will maybe, for example, let's say there's 3 phrases that have like a third tone and you're messing that third tone up, for example. You might go learn another phrase that's completely different that also has a third tone, but for some reason your brain is able to learn that phrase easier and you can say it clearly. Later, when you go back to one of the phrases you struggle with, your brain might have made a connection to the third tone in another word, which suddenly makes that first phrase a lot easier to say. And suddenly it's like, whoa, why is that so easy? I wasn't even practicing it. That's so bizarre. Cool. So I'd probably do less phrases, quote unquote, 1,000 times. I don't know if 1,000 is the number, but a lot of times until it gets a little bit, it's feeling kind of dull or you've figured it out. And then kind of add some more, add some more, add some more. You might even want to do it as mini conversations and not just phrases.
Okay.
You might even want to do that.
Yeah, I like that.
Get more vocabulary for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love more vocabulary. Honestly, I don't want to quit on the study book because I feel like it is a good place to, start having conversations with native speakers. And I'm not sure if you've heard of an app called Tandem. Maybe I can reach out to some people on there, like once I've gotten my pronunciation, So.
Yeah, I would probably have that as your 20% flirting time. Like, do that. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I would do that too. I'm a big fan of having a major focus, and that's like you're doing these actions to get to this point and because that can guarantee you progress.
Yes.
And then you can do whatever you want. Use Tandem. Like, that's literally what I do. Like, for example, my main thing that I do for Mandarin right now is I take a class. I take a class, and that's my primary thing I do. We follow a textbook. It's very structured. It's kind of boring, to be honest, sometimes. I don't always like it, to be honest. It's fine, but that's my primary thing. But then I do other things. I just downloaded a new song today and I really liked it. I'm gonna look up the lyrics. That's the thing I'll do, and I'll be like, oh, cool, learn some new words. I also run a Chinese conversation group, and I often learn a lot from that because I'll try and say something, I don't know how to say it, and a native speaker helps me. There's other things I do on the outside, but my main thing that's like consistent, that I always do, that I consistently learn from, that I can measure my improvements, I can see how many textbooks I've been through, I can see my test marks, I can see it. It's very motivating, so I can see myself get better, is my class. So I really, not for everyone, but I do think for a lot of people, that's a good framework to use.
Got it. So did you always take classes in Mandarin? Or did you just...
I like classes. I do. I know it's not for everyone. You don't have to. But for me, yeah, I do like classes.
Okay. So when did you start to like hear the tones? Like I imagine you're fairly fluent, you know, something by now.
I'm reasonably strong in Mandarin. I think for the outside, the average Joe would probably say, yeah, you're fluent in Mandarin. But I know I'm not, because I know there's so much I don't know what to say, or like I have to find workarounds in my mind sometimes, or I make little, like, so I'm not as fluent, not like my English, for example, or like my French or Spanish. But yeah, I'm strong enough. How long for tones? The pronunciation came reasonably fast, but that's because when I learn a new language, all I do is pronunciation for... I'm sorry, not all I do. I focus heavily on the pronunciation at all times. So in the beginning, what that usually means is I'll learn the alphabet, I'll try and pronounce it. If I don't say something right, I'll have a native speaker correct me, and I'll literally, like, let's say right now, where you were helping me with some, like, let's say you were me and I was a native Mandarin speaker, and this is your first day of Mandarin, and I'm saying, and I'm like, yeah, you have to say 我是, like I am. And you're like, 我是. I'd be like, no, not 我是, 我是. And then if I were you, I'd be like, wait, say it again. 我是. Say it again, say it again, say it again, say it again, say it again. I'd have them repeat it like 50 times. And then I would try and repeat it. I would try and get it where it's as close to really perfect as I could get it. And if I wasn't perfect when I left that teacher or whoever I was talking to, that's all I could think about for the next like week. And I would just practice it and practice it and practice it and practice it. And so initially I was thinking of that a lot. Later, I start thinking about that in accents and dialects. I think a lot about that after, like, oh, I noticed, like literally just yesterday, I've spoken Spanish for 12 years. Literally yesterday, I noticed one sound in Spain that is said differently, that nobody talks about being pronounced differently in Spain. And I was like, oh, I never noticed that. In 13 years of Spanish, I've never noticed. So I'm always thinking about pronunciation. So for me, it comes pretty quick. That's all I think about.
So, and you didn't have to train your brain to think about it. You just always naturally did that, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it happens because there's a reason for it. When I was 15, I went to France on a 3-month exchange trip, and I was told my pronunciation wasn't perfect. It wasn't very good. I mispronounced things. I missaid things. So at that point, I was like, wait, what? And I didn't like that people were kind of teasing me for it, or not teasing me, but that I didn't like that I was being pointed out as a teenager.
Yeah.
And so it started there. I was like, what? So I started getting obsessed with it there when I was in France. And now it's just stuck. I remember figuring it out and getting so much positive praise after I figured it out. People didn't know I wasn't French. People were like flabbergasted at my level. I got good marks. People are like, wow, your French sounds like music. Like I was on top of the world. And ever since then I was like, oh man, I gotta do that every time for every language. That's amazing. So that was just kind of trained into me, I think.
See, I can resonate with the beginning part of it. I got teased a lot too when I was in Paris. But I'd say I learned a lot of French.
Mm-hmm.
I think that my pronunciation in French, truthfully, could use some work as well. And I feel like it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just a limiting belief in my brain. I don't think I can really do much better because I've done the whole you know, I've done the whole like pronunciation thing with French, and I feel like I still haven't really hit that mark. I probably like 80%. I don't think I'll ever get to 99. So.
I do think there's a slight, I don't have any like scientific research on this per se, but I will say I do think that when you look at most skills, not just languages, when you look at most skill sets, everybody can probably the average person can get to a certain level in that skill set, and it's probably a reasonably high level. But then once you get into that top echelon, now there's talent, there's DNA, there's other things. Like, I don't think I could ever have gone and be as good at performing as Beyonce. I just don't think that's in me, you know? Like, I could become a really good singer and performer, and maybe I could be professional. Maybe I could even make a living. Maybe I could do a lot with that. But Beyonce level, no, I think once at that professional level, now there's a talent place. So I think for this pronunciation, I do feel that for me, I don't know why, there's certain things I'll just hear it, or I'll just figure it out, and it just comes to me.
Oh wow. Yeah, you probably have a really good ear for stuff like that.
I do think in a way I was born with a certain level, because I remember when I took a phonetics class back in university, not even phonetics, it was a linguistics class, an intro to linguistics. And it was like, there's like a phonetics unit, and I loved it because I never had to study for tests. I would walk in, they'd play audios, I had to transcribe what I wrote, and I just did it. And I'd walk out in 5 minutes, and I'd be the first one done. I'd get 99, 98, 97%, 100%. And I'd be like, wow, this is it? This is like amazing. This is the best class ever. No homework, no nothing, no studying, just walk in and
Yeah, that's probably your thing. But I feel like, personally, this is a good place to start with the Mandarin.
Yeah. For your French, when you look at that 30 minutes or whatnot a day, if you're roughly at a B2, there's a couple things I'd focus on. So usually at a B2, one of your biggest gaps is vocabulary. You have enough vocabulary that if you don't know how to say something, you can find a synonym or another way to say it. You can find workarounds, but that doesn't help you increase. You kind of start to stagnate. And that happens more and more. The more advanced you get, the more that happens. And it really starts at a B2, I find, is where it's really noticeable. So I would do things, I think reading reading different genre of things, fiction books, horror books, nonfiction, scientific journals, business things, health and fitness, YouTube channels in French, and trying to go in different niches will introduce you to all sorts of different vocabulary and phrases and things you don't know and you've never seen before. Because when you look at like us in English, for example, there's a lot of words I know in English, but I never use. Like I know, like what's a good example? I know a lot of like general health terms because I've watched like ER on TV or doctor shows like House when that was on. Like, so I can like think of, his BP is dropping, but I don't know how I'd say that in French because I never watched that show in French. I never had that exposure in French. I've never had that. So I don't know how to say his BP is dropping and no idea. Right.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So like that's something I'd recommend. Another thing you might want to do as well, especially if you're using apps like Tandem, is I'm going to send right now in the chat. I might even have it open so I can copy paste it immediately. No, I don't, but I'll find it right now for you. And I'll paste it in. So there's a website I like a lot for really pushing B2 level people or C1 level people for all languages. You have to speak English to use it, which you do, obviously. There we go. I just put it in the chat. This is like a website with 100 different essay questions on a variety of different topics. There's like art, business and money, communication and personality, crime and punishment, education, environment, family and children, food and diet, government, health, housing, language, leisure, media and advertising, reading, society, space exploration, sports, technology, tourism. Like there's all sorts of categories, and each category has lots of questions in it. And the questions are like, some of them are real tough to discuss. Like I'll just read one of them for you. Like here it said, some people think certain prisoners should be made to do unpaid community work instead of being put behind bars. To what extent do you agree? Imagine, first of all, if you had to translate that into French, you probably could figure it out, but it's not something you instantly go, I can do it.
Yeah.
And then imagine having that discussion with someone in French. Like you're going to hit, even me thinking of that, like I'm going to hit so many, even me with my French, and I feel equally comfortable in French as in English. Right now I'm thinking like I would hit roadblocks myself. Like, how would I express that? I want to say, well, whatever, but I don't know if I have the word for that, or I don't know if I've said something like that. So if you start to use these types of topics for your language exchanges or for private classes, you'll
Mhm.
feel your level go from that B2 and you'll feel it really start to go up.
I really love that advice because it's like that's exactly what happens to me. It's like, okay, how am I going to strategize my way around this? You know, I'm trying to figure out how to be more direct in so many words because I feel like I have the words. I basically every time I practice, basically just me typing out all the words in French that I know, making sure that I haven't forgotten any. But I'm not really like working with them, combining them in new and unique ways. So I definitely think that just from writing these, or even just doing speeches with these, I could benefit drastically.
Like if you were to write little essays or speeches or whatever, even if you don't do it with someone, even the process of trying to figure out how to say things as you write them, like as you Google stuff or dictionary stuff or ask someone, like you'll learn a lot.
Definitely. So, I mean, I've been working on this one for a while. Like, this is where I practice at. I'm thinking I probably need to try some new books because this was a little bit boring. I mean, it's interesting because it's like the history of the French language, and I'm kind of a history buff. But I want to read about science too, and I want to read about a lot of different things. So, yeah.
I don't know. Does that give you a good direction on how to use your 30 minutes and some resources on Mandarin? Does that give you?
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, and I think on the French side, a good way to measure. I'm a huge fan. I mean, it's not for everyone. I think different people have different ways to view things, but I personally, when I work with people, I'm a really big fan of having measurable ways to see that you've improved because it's so easy for us to keep learning and not feel like we're improving. And even though we have, it's like a really good measurable way you might do it is like when you pick a topic, right? You might say, how many of these topics was I able to write or prepare a speech or whatnot about in an educated kind of way where I feel confident about it, right? And that might be a good way to do it because when you're talking about this unpaid labor and things of that nature, you're going to learn all sorts of prison terms. You would learn all sorts of legal terms probably. You learn as you write it, you're going to learn a whole bunch, right? So,
Definitely.
and all of a sudden, when someone's asked you that, if you ever have to actually talk about that, you're going to have forgotten some words for sure. You're not going to remember everything. That's even me. That'll happen. Like everyone, that'll happen. But you'll remember a certain percentage. You might remember half of them, right?
Definitely. And that's progress. So,
yeah, totally. All right. Well, if that's everything, we can probably wrap this up here.
For sure. I appreciate your time today and keep doing what you're doing, man. You're going crazy on social media right now, man. Keep it up.
Oh, well, thank you.
You don't like direct compliments, do you?
What's that?
You don't really like compliments like that, do you?
I'm pretty neutral on compliments and pretty neutral on negative feedback too. I kind of just listen. I'm pretty neutral on everything. I take everything with a grain of salt. Someone can say I'm the worst, and they don't, it is what it is. Someone can say like, oh, you're doing great, and again, it is what it is because I'll, try and keep it pretty neutral on both negative and positive. I try and
I think they call that sang-froid.
Bah, merci.
De rien, c'est mon plaisir.
Ok, bah à la prochaine.
Absolument.
Ok, au revoir.
Merci pour le temps. Merci pour me rejoindre pour cette vidéo.
Ouais, de rien. Et à la prochaine.
D'accord.
Ouais.